What if I told you there exists a seed whose protein rivals steak gram for gram? A seed that doesn't wilt when heat waves turn whole fields to ash. A seed that asks for almost no water, yet fed desert nations for 5 millennia. And then, almost overnight, we abandoned it. We traded it for crops that couldn't survive the world that was coming. Its fields were erased, its name smothered, its story nearly lost, but the seed did not die. It simply waited. This is the account of the crop humanity discarded the moment it was needed most. Before opening today's archive, remember this. If these forgotten stories matter to you, the best way to preserve them is simple. Subscribe, tap the bell, and share these vaults with those who hunger for the knowledge beneath our feet. Our archive opens in a wind-swept valley in northern Mexico. Tahahuacan, an archaeological site dated to around 500 BCE. Inside storage pits sealed with desert clay, researchers uncovered seeds untouched for 2,500 years, but even these weren't the beginning. In 2021, geneticists traced their lineage back 5,000 years to a single moment of domestication in the Sonoran Desert. A brilliant act by people with no written language, but with agricultural wisdom deeper than anything we practice today. In a world where survival hinged on choosing what to plant first, they planted this bean before anything else. Not because it was sentimental, because it kept them alive. This is the Tepary bean, known scientifically as Phaseolus acutifolius, a plant sculpted by evolution for the harshest places on Earth. Its genetic code is a fortress. It manufactures rare amino sugars that protect its proteins even under scorching heat, temperatures that kill corn in a single afternoon. When drought hardens the earth, its leaves fold shut, hiding from the sun until nightfall. It pulls nitrogen from the air and locks it into the soil, reviving dead ground. And each handful delivers more protein than beef, up to 25 grams per 100 grams of bean. The Tohono O'odham called it Tepary, a simple word for a simple bean. But their stories say something profound, that the Milky Way itself is made not of stars, but of white Tepary beans scattered across the night. That is how abundant it once was. By 1000 CE, the Hohokam had spread it across what is now Arizona, using farming systems modern agronomists still struggle to explain. They planted Tepary beans in dry washes, channels where flash floods raced during summer monsoons. By building brush dams, they slowed the floodwaters just long enough for the beans to drink. One storm was enough for them to sprout. In 60 days, they reached maturity. 2 monsoon rains meant a full harvest. Even in places where only 3 inches of rain fell each year, Tepary beans yielded reliable crops. By the 1920s, Tohono O'odham farmers were growing 1.5 million pounds of them annually. They traded them across the Southwest, connecting ancient communities from Arizona to the Great Plains. The bean carried them through famine, drought, and unforgiving heat. And, before processed food swept through the region, type 2 diabetes was virtually unknown. Their traditional diet of Tepary beans, mesquite flour, and cholla buds kept blood sugar balanced and cholesterol low. Later, modern research confirmed what their ancestors already knew. Tepary beans contain compounds that slow the growth of certain cancer cells. This wasn't just food. It was medicine growing in the desert. So how did a crop this powerful vanish? The answer isn't nature, it's ideology. The first erasure began in the 1600s when Spanish missionaries established a chain of missions across the Rio Grande. Their priorities were conversion, control, and resource extraction. They brought barley, wheat, and European cattle. They ordered native farmers to grow wheat as tribute. Tepary beans, unruly, independent, impossible to confine, were pushed aside. A Jesuit record from 1694 describes them as too wild for cultivation. That single sentence reveals everything. A plant that required no irrigation, no tools, no oversight, no colonial supervision, was a threat. Tepary fields were replaced, sometimes burned. Ironically, European grains failed whenever drought returned. But the Tepary did not rebel. Its seeds simply hid in the soil, waiting. The second erasure arrived in the 1930s. Mechanization reshaped agriculture. During the 1920s, Tepary beans were thriving. But after World War II, farmers abandoned small desert fields to work on industrial cotton operations. These new farms depended on machines that required uniform crops. Tepary beans, with pods that matured at different times and shattered if left too long, couldn't be harvested by mechanical pickers. What protected them in the wild destroyed them in industry. Government subsidies funneled money into corn, soybeans, and cotton, crops designed to feed livestock instead of people. By 1950, the Tepary bean was nearly extinct. A crop that had supported civilizations for 5,000 years disappeared in a generation. But a few families refused to forget. Ramona Button of Ramona Farms found a jar of old Tepary seeds tucked inside a trunk. Others found theirs in clay pots or cloth bags hidden in attics. Seeds that should have vanished survived because someone treated them like memory itself. Their moment returned in the 1970s. Drought devastated global agriculture. Soy yields plummeted. Corn withered. Even wheat, the crop colonizers used to replace Tepary, collapsed in the heat. Scientists in the American Southwest began testing plants that still grew in abandoned fields. One vine stood out, small white blossoms thriving at 115 degrees Fahrenheit. It was Tepary, alive after 4 centuries of suppression. Trials in Arizona and Sonora shocked researchers. Tepary beans grew with almost no irrigation, producing strong yields while restoring nitrogen to the soil. A USDA researcher, Dr. Howard Scott, called it a gift from the past to the future, and yet big agriculture ignored it. Why? Because you can't patent Tepary beans. You can't engineer them for profit. You can't sell pesticides alongside them. They don't need them. They are freedom in plant form. That made them invisible to a system built on ownership. Academic journals labeled them unsuitable for large-scale agriculture. Translation: not profitable. But some people refused to let that be the final word. In the mid-1990s, the Tohono O'odham Community Action Group began gathering ancestral seed lines from elders. Some varieties hadn't been planted for 300 years. Farmers like Terrell Dew Johnson and Sterling Johnson grew them by hand, without machines or chemicals. They called the practice planting the ancestors. By the early 2000s, harvests were large enough to feed families and supply schools. Children learned to cook the beans their great-grandparents had relied upon. Flavor returned. Identity returned. Universities soon confirmed what farmers had always known. Tepary beans need 75% less water than modern beans. They are a blueprint for survival. As climate models warn that global yields could drop by 2050, scientists have begun treating Tepary beans as a lifeline. Trials show they remain green and productive at 115 degrees. Some researchers now call them America's climate-resilient crop. International research centers are crossbreeding Tepary with common beans, trying to pass on its drought and heat resistance. Government agencies are exploring it for food security programs. But the real momentum comes from the indigenous communities who never abandoned it. An elder summarized it best. We grow it because it remembers how to live when everything else forgets. The story of the Tepary bean isn't about rediscovery. It's about finally listening. The knowledge wasn't lost. It was ignored. While the world searches desperately for heat-proof crops, the answer has been sitting in desert soils for 5,000 years. A bean shaped by scarcity, a crop erased twice, a survivor still offering its gifts. If this archive opened something in you, subscribe, hit the bell, and share this story.